Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Please take your time joining us. We're really appreciative for everyone for joining us this evening. Hello, hello, hello. Let me give everyone some time to get settled and join us. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is the 10th of June, and we're looking forward to the Caribbean College of Family Physicians Jamaica chapter, Healthy Aging and NCD virtual conference. This will be a two-part conference. Today is part one, and the theme is prevention of NCDs and healthy aging habits in primary care. My name is Samuel. I am from Oldgate Solutions, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator this evening. I pray that you are well, and in that vein, let us invite a word of prayer as we go through today's proceedings.
Good evening, everyone. May we welcome the presence of Almighty God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit as we bow our heads in prayer. Our loving, awesome Father in heaven, we are grateful for your many blessings and love. We thank you for this opportunity to again share relevant and useful information through this virtual conference hosted by the Caribbean College of Family Physicians, Jamaica, on healthy aging and prevention of non-communicable diseases. Dear Lord God, growing older is a reality everyone must face, and with improved healthcare and better lifestyle practices, the increase of the aging population is evident, with longer life expectancy noted. Help us, as health practitioners, to become better equipped to assist with prevention of diseases that affect longevity and to ensure that the best management of the various health challenges affecting quality of life for this population is offered. Grant us wisdom and skill to ensure that the body, mind, soul, and spirit are attended to as we care for the elderly with understanding, compassion, and patience. May your presence be welcomed in their lives so that, as your word declares, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prospereth. Father, may we also, as health workers, not forget to care for ourselves and embrace the same practices which will allow us to age gracefully and healthily. We pray that the Holy Spirit will lead and guide all the proceedings tonight. May He grant wisdom to all the presenters as they expertly share their knowledge on this important topic. May our thoughts and discussions be inspired by you as we attentively receive all the valuable information presented. Grant, Lord, that as we learn, we will capably utilize the knowledge to enhance the quality of life for the vulnerable elderly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arlene Henry Dawkins, for that wonderful, wonderful prayer. And next, we go to the president of the CCFP chapter, Dr. Seni Onanuju, who will be bringing you greetings and an overview. Dr. Onanuju, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. To our specially invited guests, Doctors Shane Murray and Anthony Frankson, distinguished colleagues, our sponsor, IT and technical support personnel, Mr. Samuel Heron of Oldgate Solutions Limited, CCF Administrator, Mrs. Lynn Thompson Hyatt, friends, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening to you all. On behalf of the Executive Board of the Caribbean College of Family Physicians Jamaican chapter, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to our Healthy Aging and Non-Communicable Disease Virtual Conference, Part 1, under the theme Prevention of NCDs and Healthy Aging Habits in primary care. Prevention and early detection of non-communicable diseases in primary care involve proactive screening for risk factors, health promotion, and continuous monitoring. This approach ensures that individuals at high risks receive timely interventions to prevent disease progression. Early prevention and detection of non-communicable diseases is crucial for improving health outcomes. Non-communicable diseases such as cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and cancer often develop slowly and may not show symptoms until they reach advanced stages. Early detection through proactive screening can significantly reduce the risk of severe complications and improve the quality of life for individuals. It therefore becomes important that we adopt and implement those key strategies such as proactive screening, health promotion, and continuous monitoring. By focusing on these strategies, primary healthcare systems can effectively manage NCDs, ensuring that individuals receive the necessary support and interventions to maintain their health. Longevity medicine focuses on extending both lifespan and health span by addressing the biological processes of aging through preventive healthcare practices. This approach integrates lifestyle interventions, personalized treatment strategies, and the use of biomarkers to enhance overall health in aging populations. Today's CME activity put on by the college is pursuant to the college's mandate, which promotes the enhancement of knowledge, skills, and lifelong learning that has exemplified the practice of medicine throughout the ages. This evening, we are pleased to explore strategies to prevent and reduce the ill effects of non-communicable diseases and the adoption of healthy lifestyle approaches that will be beneficial to our patients and the broader society as timely and appropriate management of NCDs and healthy aging habits has significant social, economic, and personal benefits accrued over time that will undoubtedly enhance the quality of life of our patients in primary care setting and the broader society. Today, we have with us two knowledgeable and experienced speakers, Dr. Shane Murray, junior internist at the University of the West Indies, and Dr. Anthony Frankson, consultant epidemiologist and bioethicist, thanks to the planning committee of the Caribbean College of Family Physicians Jamaican chapter for inviting them to share their time, their knowledge, experience, and expertise with us. I am confident that we will be well informed and enriched by their presentations. Dr. Murray, Dr. Francine, we wholeheartedly welcome you both. A special welcome to our members and all other attendees who continue to support us. Our sponsor, our sponsor, Abbott Nutritional, we are deeply grateful that they have come to participate with us so that they were able to put up this webinar. On behalf of the college, I welcome you all, invite you to sit back and enjoy the presentations. We thank you, and to all of us, wishing you God's richest blessings always. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, President of the CCFP JA chapter, Dr. Seni Ononuju. Thank you so much. So, everybody, as I said, my name is Samuel, and we want to start a little bit different before I go into the presentation. So, there's a very important activity that is happening tomorrow. It is called the FIFA World Cup. I want everybody in the chat to put up the flag of the country that they are rooting for to win the World Cup. My panelists, everybody who is in the attendance room, I want you to put up the flags. I just put up my flag. That's the team I'm looking forward to winning the World Cup this year. All right? German, I see Germany. I say, wow, Brazil. Brazil. Anybody else? Any other teams? Any support out there? Who are you looking to see win the World Cup? I see Dr. Antoine says Spain. Okay. All right. Brazil. So, all right, while you guys are posting that, let me take the time out now to introduce our very first speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, our next presenter is a young physician committed to advancing preventative healthcare and improving outcomes through the early detection and management of chronic diseases. Dr. Shane Luke Murray is a third-year resident in internal medicine at the University Hospital of the West Indies. He's a graduate of Wolmer's Boys School and the University of the West Indies, Mona, and has a keen interest in preventative medicine, primary care, and the management of non-communicable diseases. Today, he will share practical insights on a topic that remains central to improving population health and reducing the burden of chronic illness. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Shane Murray, who will present on prevention and early detection of non-communicable diseases in primary care. Everybody, please welcome our first presenter. Dr. Murray, over to you.
Hello and good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak, and to the Caribbean College of Family Physicians for having me speak today. I'm just going to go ahead and share my slides.
Sure, Doc. Remember, you're supposed to tell us your team too.
Oh, yes. My team is Germany.
That
As
is
in
it.
Germany.
Very good. Good. That sounds like an interesting choice. All right, so we're seeing your slides. Perfect,
Is
Doc.
that clear?
Yeah, perfect. Over to you.
All right, so good evening, everyone. So again, as was previously said, my name is Dr. Murray, and currently I'm at the University Hospital of the West Indies in internal medicine. Just very briefly, this topic does hold my interest, primarily because of the things that we see by the time they get to hospital, in any form of tertiary institution. We know that we have very much likely missed the boat, and it is very, very heartbreaking sometimes to see what the patients and the burden that it provide um, that it even causes them as well as their loved ones. So any doctor, any physician should be given the task to try as very best as they can to educate themselves and put into action the plans necessary to reduce this as much as possible. So without further ado, we're just going to look today at this topic involving the following objectives. So we want to describe the burden of disease, of non-communicable disease, in the local and international setting. We want to identify common risk factors leading to non-communicable disease, examine the evidence aimed at targeting risk factors, and just reviewing the current early screening methods that we have. So these are just some introductory questions, which again will be repeated at the end of the presentation. And this basically says which strategy would likely produce the greatest reduction in premature non-communicable disease mortality at the population level, which A would be increasing tertiary hospital beds, B, expanding intensive care services, C, reduction of tobacco use, unhealthy diets, and physical inactivity, and D, increasing specialist referrals. And So that is something that we can mull over. Can also put it in the chat if you like as well. The question will pop up at the end of the presentation. I'll give it a few seconds. So for those who may have been reading. All right. And question number 2. Which of the following best describes the World Health Organization framework for effective non-communicable disease prevention and management? A, the disease-specific programs delivered through tertiary care centers. A combination, which is B, sorry, of a life course approach and continuum of care model. C, population screening and pharmacological intervention only. And D, specialist-led management with episodic follow-up. So those are the 2 questions based on this presentation that I'd just like everybody to mull over. And we'll come back to them around the end of the presentation. So today we're looking at non-communicable disease. And we see, according to WHO, it's responsible for annual death count of over 40 million worldwide deaths, and it represents 75% of worldwide deaths. So every 4 patients, 3 of them would have suffered and encountered a fatal disease as a result of non-communicable disease. It's quite a large number. And the major categories that we have that we often try and tackle, as was mentioned as well by President Dr. Ononuju, was the 4 cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and chronic respiratory diseases. So what we see is a significant increase in the global burden. It is also seen with a concurrent decrease in communicable diseases. We are happy to know that over the past half a century, we have had just such strides in the medical field in terms of antibiotic usage, sanitation practices, and global vaccination schedules, which have significantly decreased that of infectious disease mortality. But at the same time, we have this rise in non-communicable disease, which is a problem which needs to be appropriately addressed. We can see the disparity in the developed and developing world. It is something, especially in low resource areas or countries, a lot of time, resources, and energy are spent on dealing with the tail end of what non-communicable disease provides and all the complications that are associated with same. And this only pushes these countries into further economic burden and definitely inhibits economic growth. And growth that could be better spent in our healthcare system on providing greater resources in the primary care setting, as well as in the setting for screening and detection as well. So it is a never-ending vicious cycle that we should be definitely aiming from our end in healthcare to break. So, of course, mentioned were the socioeconomic implications of this. We see, just generally how it affects. It's definitely very costly once they get to the hospital stage, and that is in and of itself its own burden for patients, loved ones as well. So in our setting, I'd have to say the more local setting, these are figures. I'm coming out of Jamaica. We also have an increased non-communicable disease burden. 77% of deaths were due to non-communicable disease in 2020, according to the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the World Health Organization. And what we have seen is a steady increase in the number of deaths over the last decade. And of those deaths, 80%, again, the big 4, 80% are contributed by cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, as well as chronic respiratory diseases as well. So it is important to note we do have an increasing population as well as an aging population. So if it does track that, it is expected that you would find a greater number of people with non-communicable disease and therefore greater number of deaths in this particular case. However, what we look at is across the board and across ages, the age standardized or age adjusted mortality rate is also increased. This was looking over the last studied century of the 2010s to 2020, which has increased from 462.8 to 526 per 100,000 population. And this is in direct contrast to the Americas, in which these numbers have actually been steadily decreasing, which we'll look at in a brief moment. So this is just an image, again, adopted from World Health Organization, just looking at the top causes. These are the Jamaican figures, I must say. We can see that there is a significant amount here from COVID-19. Without it, the infectious or communicable disease portion of this particular graph would be much less significant. However, even in that case, we still see where there is a significant burden, a significant number of cases, cardiovascular disease involving stroke, heart disease, that is here, as well as diabetes mellitus, which on average is greater in terms of its prevalence, especially in the regional setting. Geographic areas is very important to mention. And so it's very high, particularly in females, it tends to be higher. And so we look at this particular graph and it just kind of reiterates the point. The mortality rates are climbing and we have to intervene, we have to act so that we can reduce everything in terms of the burden, the economic burden, the physical burden, not to mention, which it wasn't even mentioned, the personal burden that it does put on, that it just puts on patients, as well as just the wider community as well. So we compare it to this particular graph. This is the Americas as a whole, looking over a 2-century period, where the age-adjusted mortality rates have actually been on the decline, right? So we see countries, in particular first world countries, the United States of America, countries like Canada, greatly contribute to why these particular figures would have been decreased. But if we just look at the raw data, looking particularly in the regional setting, countries like Guyana, Trinidad, and Jamaica are higher than this particular average. And so it must be addressed in an appropriate manner. And we have to do what we can to combat this in a setting that applies to where we are, to our culture, as well as our geographic location. So I'm sorry for the blurriness of this particular slide, but this is just a broad overview of the risk factors of non-communicable disease that we can see, with the broad headings of genetics, environmental factors, socio-demographic factors, self-management factors, and factors of medical conditions. Many of these, of course, as we know, can be broken down into modifiable and non-modifiable. And the ones that we are looking to really affect, of course, are the ones that we can modify. What are the things that we can change in healthcare? What are the things we can empower our patients with to combat non-communicable disease? And so it all boiled down, according to the World Health Organization, these are the main things that it boiled down to, these 5 main risks. They used to take on a 4x4 approach involving 4 particular risks. So this particular slide would exclude air pollution, which has been added a little more recently. So these include an unhealthy diet, tobacco usage, air pollution, harmful use of alcohol, as well as physical inactivity. And so again, just listed again, more just in a number form, just to kind of drive home the point. These are the things, the major modifiable risk factors that we do need to focus on. There are, of course, other things, but these in particular definitely need to be mentioned. The WHO took a stepwise approach to non-communicable disease risk factor surveillance, looking at 3 particular steps. the behavioral, the physical, and the biochemical factors involved in handling these different non-communicable diseases. And in its inauguration at the start, about 52 countries had put in their various raw data, and now involves over 100 countries. And this data, in terms of its surveillance, goes on to just provide different just different guidelines, different management action plans that can be taken to further combat non-communicable disease. So we have this lovely slide: prevention is better than cure, we love to say. And of course, it just kind of speaks to how dense, how appropriately packed in terms of management prevention ought to be. It should definitely outweigh what we are doing in the healthcare system as it relates to prevention versus cure. The impact that it has just based on this, it just really is a way to show that it's much greater in terms of its impact in what we are able to do to benefit the wider population. And so this needs to truly be our focus, not just for those in the primary care setting, but it needs to be just across the board at all levels. It needs definitely to be addressed. Awareness needs to be there. This, of course, is just something that is extremely important for us to look at. And so there are several goals from the WHO for prevention of non-communicable disease. And of course, based on these risk factors, which have been identified, we then need to, as best as possible, see how best we can eliminate or reduce the risk of these different factors, in particular the modifiable risk factors, to see what we can do there. So we want to, of course, eliminate and reduce risk, and this involves, of course, a cessation or reduction in tobacco use, a reduction of harmful alcohol use, maintenance of a healthy or an active lifestyle, consuming a healthy diet, and then, of course, the newest of the bunch in terms of the goals, which is to improve air quality. And of course, there are several things that we can potentially do. The framework, however, needs to be there, of course, on a local and on a global level for improving air quality as well. But for one through four are what we tend to focus on when we want to empower patients to manage their health well. So there are several global and local initiatives that we can use to combat and to tackle these underlying risk factors. And we'll just look at them in a little more detail, but for the WHO, ones which are replace, shake, and empower, very important, which we will just go through. But the local initiatives, I just wanted to speak about in a brief manner. Jamaica Moves, inaugurated in 2017, and it had the entire goal was to encourage lifestyle changes. It was a coordinated national response to, of course, the growing epidemic of these non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. And the baseline goal was to reduce non-communicable disease by 25% by the year 2025. Of course, we are beyond that now, and it had been seen, of course, that COVID-19, in terms of the different activities that had been planned, had kind of pushed back some of the goals that had been intended. But this is still an important movement, I believe. Encouraging lifestyle patients in our patients is extremely important. It cannot be overemphasized the benefits to ensuring that the patient takes his or her own initiative. There is only so much we can do from behind a desk when a particular person comes into the office. They have to leave knowing that they have to be, responsible for their health as well. Cannot just be on the doctors who are managing. And so this is a patient-centered approach, and it is communication and teamwork between the healthcare team, the healthcare staff, and the patients who we interact with on a daily basis. And the Know Your Numbers campaign, which was launched in 2023 again by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the main goal was to encourage annual screening. And annual screening of what? So the main things, of course, there are some indicators, which include blood sugar levels, blood pressure levels, what is the blood cholesterol levels, BMI, and waist circumference. Targeting these things on an annual basis to see how best that they can track and then set targets for themselves, and how we can help these patients to set targets for themselves as well. It shouldn't be lost to us that even though these initiatives were launched years ago, they still have relevance for us today. And there are definitely things that we can put into place on a personal level, and a teamwork effort that can be made to make this a reality, especially in this region, which will definitely contribute on a global scale. So these are just some of the initiatives by WHO. So replace, this was in response to just in terms of high blood cholesterol, replacing trans fat to improve and improving dietary sources. So review and assess, which represents REP for promoting the replacement of trans fats. Legislate, it has to come from a regulatory body, regulatory actions taken to eliminate trans fats. You want to then assess and see how these things have affected that change, to create awareness in the public center, and then to again enforce these particular rules. And then we have SHAKE, which involves the reduction of salt in the diet. The S would be standing for monitoring of salt use. H would be to harness the industry. So you have to involve, various local food companies and just engage them in terms of reduction of sodium content in the different products that are available. Adopt standards for labeling and marketing. K for knowledge, because the public has to be educated appropriately as well. And E, you want to support these public settings to promote lower sodium eating choices. And finally, empower, which the goal is to, of course, this is geared towards tobacco cessation and reduction. So you monitor tobacco use and prevention policies. P, to protect. Of course, we know we have to also be aware of the terrible effects of secondhand smoking. So it may not be the patient themselves, and it may be something that is as well in the household, which also would need to be addressed. But just creating smoke-free public spaces to reduce the risk just to the general population. There's the offer, which is all to help to quit tobacco use and cessation programs, which are in place at university hospital for that. And to warn the dangers of tobacco consumption need to be emphasized. And just from another perspective, to encourage people to buy less or to not buy at all, to raise taxes on tobacco, which would be to help to reduce the consumption in terms of what is bought. So the WHO Global Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Disease, they have several meetings, annual meetings, in terms of addressing these factors. And the Non-Communicable Disease Global Compact, spanning the decade from 2020 to 2030, was really aimed at, there were 5 particular commitments, and it's kind of boiled down to in these particular 2 points. But it was to target the prevention of premature deaths, that is, deaths under the age of 70 years of age, in this particular case, in targeting diseases including cancer, cardiovascular conditions, diabetes, and chronic respiratory diseases, and addressing these with the strategies previously mentioned involving tobacco use, unhealthy diets, physical inactivity, and the harmful use of alcohol. And this is tracked to see if specific targets can be achieved by 2030. And this is important as well, the surveillance and tracking of these things. If we see that a particular target isn't being met, then the regrouping and replanning and reorganizing are going to be important in addressing why those particular targets aren't being met. So one thing is that our concept in terms of our screening guidelines, again, which was put out by the Ministry of Health and Wellness in 2024, were based on some core concepts that were provided by the WHO framework for approaching these. So these two things are the life course approach and the continuation or continuum, of care, right? So for the life course approach, we have to be able to shift away from reactive medicine, right? Nothing good can really come of reactive versus proactive medicine in terms of the large gap in terms of what we can actually do to help the patients in terms of their health. Good health practices call for holistic care. It cannot just be unidirectional care. We have to be looking in multiple directions. So it really encourages patient or person-centered care, I must say. You want to focus on the individual needs and preferences and circumstances of the patients and the people that we're dealing with and empower them to make appropriate decisions. They have to be involved in decision making. They have to be made autonomous to ensure that their self-management is appropriate. And of course, follow-up is going to be appropriate as well. We have to learn how to be the encouragement and just a part of it that our patients need so that they can encourage themselves to take care of their health also. So you're tailoring these investigations. Health equity is also important. You have to address the social determinants of health. Poverty, education, housing, all of these things are important. It's not just the diet, and it's not just the sedentary lifestyle. It's also what is leading to these things. What is it that this patient can afford in terms of their economy? How are they housed? What is their support like? All of these things need to be appropriately addressed as well. Early and timely action as well needs to be appropriate, and you're emphasizing these things, early childhood development, school health programs, because what the life course approach really looks at is that this has to start from somewhere. Understanding the cumulative risks means that as early as conception, what are the different things, what are the different factors that will affect someone in the long term and cause the complications down the road, and understanding that starting from even as early as maternal health will have an impact on the growth, the development of a child, and eventually the growth and development of that child when they become an adult. And ultimately, we want to recognize these things and reduce their exposures as much as possible. So early intervention is what we truly are targeting in trying to make the reduction of non-communicable disease a reality. And so these are the core principles, just as listed and based. We kind of spoke about some of them in a bit of detail, but didn't really mention the fact that it has to be a collaborative effort across generations. You have to have family support or some form of support outside of the healthcare setting, and the sectors have to be together as one: primary care, tertiary care. All of these things have to come together to ensure that we are a unit that is strengthened to provide appropriate care at all stages. And it's a continuity across all life stages. What are the different things at the different stages of life that we need to intervene in to ensure that when a particular person becomes older, we have reduced the mortality and aim to reduce the premature deaths that are currently affecting us due to non-communicable disease. And the second major point, that is a part of the framework, is continuum of care. So rather than this looking at a temporal sort of view from conception to the point of death, or to the point of the elderly, this looks at continuum of care across different levels of management. So it's integration of healthcare. The promoting of comprehensive coordination of care is important. We have to, and of course, this is I have to say that this is something that we are very heavily responsible for. I do appreciate, particularly in internal medicine clinics, of which we assist to cover some of the subspecialty clinics. It is always extremely helpful when we received any form of a detailed referral about the patient that is in front of us. It really helps to bring across the continuation of care so that we can best benefit the patient. We cannot see it as isolated. A lot of times we are almost tempted to believe that because, out of sight, out of mind, it is no longer my management care, but someone else's. And we really cannot think that way. As physicians, healthcare workers, we need to understand that we have a part to play, and we need to do what we can to ensure that there's appropriate follow-up across all levels of care. Again, as with the first goal, this is a patient-centered approach. It requires collaboration, not just amongst health, even though that is what we are here for, but there needs to be collaboration as well with social services, housing, communities, families, agriculture, education. All of these things come together as one to provide the best possible outcome for the people that we see, the people that we care for in the setting of healthcare. So we are recognizing that these things have influences, and we are addressing them appropriately. And so those are really the main sort of points we want to look at. But just according to the national screening guidelines, I did take a few snapshots of what a flow chart of early screening must look like. Of course, I put this slide here really to say, not so much to look at the different flow chart of what ought to be done in terms of management, this to go to tertiary care, this to be managed by a specialist, this complication to be management. But really the first box here is what I pondered over for quite some time. An asymptomatic person younger than or over the age of 20, or so as young as age 20, although the screening guidelines do mention that at the age 18 is really when screening ought to start for hypertension in particular. And I really asked myself, how many 18-year-olds do we really see in our practice, in our care at that age? That's the the age of feeling invincible, almost. And we have to find various ways to get that particular young adult age group involved in early care, because by the time an hypertension, as we know, which is sometimes called a silent killer, can start having end organ damage way before we see anything appearing in the clinical setting, anything that we can possibly intervene in terms of the different complications that may develop. And so I just thought it very important to put in this slide. I also think it's important that we, just on our own time, as much as possible, we look over the different screening guidelines. There are screening guidelines put out by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, which are very concise. These flowcharts make it very easy to understand what we ought to do. in various situations. And this really, this is where we want to start. We want to start as young as possible so that when we're tracking when we're tracking people as they go along, we are preventing greater burden on our health system. And by doing this, we also reduce the burden on ourselves in our clinics, in our health centers, at the community level. Reducing these complications will ultimately lead to less burden on the healthcare system as well. And so it is truly for our benefit also that we look to put these things into place. And so just another brief flow chart. So of course, patient who is asymptomatic, looking at diabetes mellitus type 2 diabetes in particular. We're looking at an age of 45 here. Again, by this time, we may begin to see, some of the complications, a bit of numbness in the feet, blurriness in the eyes. And by that point, we have really and truly missed the boat. We have already started seeing some of the micro and macrovascular effects that would have been taking place. And we want to ensure that we catch these people before. So this is an asymptomatic person. So we don't know what is going on, but they need to be appropriately screened. Fasting blood glucose or a glucose tolerance test. And this would be done every 2 years for the asymptomatic patient. And for the person who is at risk, particularly those who have a family history of diabetes in particular, they need to be screened every year so that we can appropriately pick up and start management for these patients from an as early possible time that we can. And so, it really just goes to say, again, this is asymptomatic, but high risk, they start a lot earlier, as young as 30 years of age. And so the process and in terms of the flow chart is, quite similar to those who may be of an average risk. And we see some of the risks here. And a lot of this, and I love how this little blurb, this box here really mentions the overlap that we have with non-communicable disease. You have, obesity, which may be overlapping with diabetes, a history of cardiovascular disease, again, overlapping. And this overlap, where one thing can really lead to another. And the risk factors that have been identified that are associated with the development of all of these things, alcohol use being something that can raise the blood pressure, tobacco smoking that can have, very harmful cardiovascular effects. All of these things have to be addressed as one. And we need to start emphasizing what these slides are saying. The first box says asymptomatic. That's where we want to go. That's where we want to catch the targets. That's how our target needs to be. And so, very important, we can see, how reduction of risk factors is important. So again, this was the question that was previously mentioned. Which strategy would be likely to produce the greatest reduction in premature non-communicable disease mortality at the population level? And we had read the answers previously: increasing tertiary beds, expanding intensive care services, reduction of tobacco use, unhealthy diet and physical inactivity, increasing specialist referrals. And sure that many people have, put their various answers in the chat. And in particular, this is really what we need to be looking at. Of course, the issue with A, B, and D, as we would have seen in this presentation, is just the very fact that these are all late stage. By the time you've gotten to tertiary, intensive care, specialist referrals, we have once again missed the boat. And we really need to target these things that we see from as early as possible. And number 2, which of the following best describes the WHO framework for effective non-communicable disease prevention and management? A, disease-specific programs delivered through tertiary care centers. B, a combination of life course approach and a continuum of care model. C, population screening and pharmacological intervention only. And D, specialist management with episodic follow-up. So I'll just give a few more seconds, and then I will enter the answer. The answer, of course, is B. A combination of life course approach and continuum of care model. Again, looking at just a different risk. Both of these are very patient-centered. It's where we need to be. It's where we ought to aim for. And I just have to mention, this is just on a personal level, you can see what a difference it makes when we take an extra 5-10 minutes in the care of the patients. And I know it's very burdensome with the amount of patients we may have to see, but just taking the time to empower these patients using this approach is very important, because it then allows that patient to be a lot more careful, a lot more deliberate about their own management, about their own screening, about their own treatment to effect what would reach us widespread change. And it has to come from us. We have to do our part. So that is something that I think we also need to be aware of as well. And we see how AC and D really, they just don't fit the bill when it comes on to what we need to do. Again, through tertiary care centers, we have missed the boat. Population screening is important, and pharmacological intervention, it stops short of what we need to do. And again, specialist-led management, we really don't want it to get to that point, right? We want to be able to see our patients healthy, blood pressure control, GMRs control, lipids are under control. All of these things we want to make sure are appropriate. This will provide the framework that we need to see the change and be the change that we ought to effect based on what we do. So, in summary, most of the non-communicable diseases are preventable through modification of major risk factors. Primary care is the cornerstone of non-communicable disease prevention and early detection. Early screening enables timely intervention and reduces complications. A life course approach and continuum of care model are essential for sustainable control. And of course, it is more effective, it is more equitable, it is more cost efficient when we go with prevention than treating advanced disease. And so I thank you for inviting me, and I thank you for your time and attention.
Dr. Shane Murray, thank you so much. What an amazing presentation, very clear. And I know that our attendees really got a lot there. I'm reminding our attendees that we're going to do one combined question and answer later on. So I'm asking Dr. Murray to just stay with us. And I'm inviting everyone to put their questions in the Q&A. I'll see the questions, so I'll be able to ask the questions there, given that the chat has a lot of activities going on there. So Dr. Murray, thank you again. Wonderful presentation. All right. It takes cash to care, and one of those caregivers today is our sponsor for tonight's event, and that of course is Abbott Nutritional. We want to welcome from Abbott Nutritional Mr. Paul Russell, who will be greeting you now, telling you about the wonderful products that Abbott has to offer before we go into our final presentation, followed by the question and answer. So again, please put your questions in the Q&A. Also, you can put them for Abbott as well, should you have any questions. Paul, over to you. I think you already have, there you go. We're seeing the first slide. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Paul Russell, and I'm part of the Abbott Nutrition team. And at Abbott, we provide products to help you and your patients live life to the fullest. So Abbott products cover various stages of life, from infants through to young adults, the aging, and those with special health needs. So we're going to look at one of our products tonight, And the first one we're looking at is Ensure Original. And Ensure Original provides complete balanced nutrition, and it has key nutrients like vitamin B12 and folate, which support brain health. We have vitamin D and calcium, which supports bone health. We have protein for muscle health, and we have zinc and antioxidants for immune support. If you have patients who are underweight, losing weight without trying, there's Ensure Complete. Now, Ensure Complete has 30 grams of protein. It has 350 calories. It has your vitamins and minerals. It has 25 vitamins and minerals. It has 4 grams of fiber, and it's clinically proven to help gain and maintain weight. For patients who wish to maintain a healthy weight or are pursuing intentional weight loss, then there's Ensure Max Protein Shake. That's also 30 grams of protein. It has 150 calories, 4 grams of fiber, 1 gram of sugar, and 25 vitamins and minerals. So to help your patients reach their nutritional goals, we just need to direct them to the ideal Ensure. So just know your patients and know your Ensure product, and you can match the two so that you get the best outcome. For patients living with diabetes, there's Glucerna with Carb Steady, and I'll explain what Carb Steady is in a little while. To help maintain blood sugar response, help manage blood sugar response. Now, Glucerna Original has 10 grams of protein, it has 4 grams of fiber, 180 calories per serving, and it's one carb choice. If we need increased protein, we have other Glucerna products, and we have a few that I'm going to highlight tonight. We have Glucerna Hunger Smart, which has 15 grams of protein, 180 calories. It has 4 to 6 grams of fiber, which is dependent on the flavor, and we have 25 vitamins and minerals. We have a new play on the market called Glucerna 1 gram total sugar shake, and that's also 180 calories per 10 fluid ounces. It has 15 grams of protein. It has dietary fiber, 4 grams, and again, 4 to 6 grams of dietary fiber, and that's dependent on the flavor. Currently in the market, we have vanilla and milk chocolate. Yes, and it's available in your supermarkets even now. And should you need additional protein to the Glucerna Hunger Smart, we have Glucerna Protein Smart. This one has 30 grams of protein, only 150 calories, 4 grams of fiber, and it has your vitamins and minerals. Now, I should mention that all Ensure and Glucernas are suitable for lactose intolerance, and they're gluten-free. So we spoke earlier about Carb Steady, and Carb Steady is an Abbott coined word, which simply means that there's a blend of complex carbohydrates that are slowly released into the small intestine, which helps to minimize blood glucose response. So on the diagram on your left, on my left, it's showing simple carbohydrates going into the small intestines, and you see how quickly it is absorbed. But with Glucerna with Carb Steady, the diagram on the right, you see that absorption takes place right throughout the small intestines. For your patients with hard to heal wounds, and this keeps them from living their best life, there's Juven. The wounds may be pressure injuries, diabetic foot wounds, surgical incisions, or other acute and chronic wounds. Now, Juven is a medical food which features key ingredients, key nutrients to help support wound healing from the inside out. First, we have arginine, which promotes blood flow and protein production. Glutamine, which supports tissue development. We have micronutrients, vitamin C, E, B12, and zinc, which support wound healing. We have collagen peptides, which stimulates internal collagen production. We have HMB, and HMB is a metabolite of leucine, and this enhances protein synthesis. And The recommended dose for Juven is 2 sachets per day, and you mix in 8 to 10 ounces of water or juice, and you start to see results in as little as 2 weeks. Now, my last product slide is a reminder that there's Pedialyte, and Pedialyte is not just for children. Pedialyte provides hydration for all. Whether you're exercising, you're experiencing excessive sweating, you're enduring extreme heat, as we're probably doing through now, and we have whether vomiting or diarrhea, Pedialyte replenishes fluids and electrolytes. So I've included my contact information with my cell number. It's 876-489-6093. And there's also my email address with paul.russell, and that is with one L in my email address, paul.russell@abbott.com. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you guys. And please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate it, and we appreciate Abbott Nutritional for continuing to support the CCFP Jamaica chapter and all of the events. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw the information there. I know Paul will type it in the chat as well. So if you need any more information from Abbott Nutritional, feel free to get directly in touch with Mr. Russell. All right.
Thanks.
So thanks, Paul. All right, so we get ready now for our next presenter. Our next presenter is a distinguished physician, epidemiologist, educator, and bioethicist whose career in medicine, public health, and academia spans more than 4 decades. Dr. Morton Anthony C. Frankson is a graduate of the University of the West Indies class of 1976 and has served in clinical medicine, primary health care, public health, health promotion, epidemiology, and medical education across Jamaica, the United States, and the Caribbean. He has held numerous leadership roles, including Chief Medical Officer for the Turks and Caicos Islands, lecturer within the Faculty of Medical Sciences at the University of the West Indies, and currently serves as attending physician and Director of Research and Statistics at the Northern Caribbean University. He is also the immediate past president of the Bioethicist Society of the English-speaking Caribbean. Dr. Frankson brings a wealth of experience in preventative care, primary health care, epidemiology, biostatistics, and global health, making him uniquely qualified to address today's topic. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Anthony Frankson, consultant epidemiologist and bioethicist, who will present on longevity, medicine and healthy aging, promoting health span in primary care. Dr. Frankson, over to you. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Doc.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I am actually just going to add one thing to it, and that is that the remnant of my class that is in Jamaica met at the Terra Nova Hotel last week to celebrate 50 years since that class graduated. And it was just a joy to see these young-looking 70-odd-year-old people. One of them was actually 80-something years old, but I won't tell you who. He's a highly esteemed person too. But it was wonderful to see that. So we have aged. We have definitely aged. And one thing that we have come to a conclusion about is that aging, as you get older in life, it is not a matter of once a man, twice a child. We are slowly putting to rest that saying, since we are now once a man, every year, an older and more, and older and older man. And we know that aging has its challenges. Today, my topic is longevity medicine and healthy aging. And the emphasis is on promoting health span in primary care. When it comes to declarations, I just have to agree with the Apostle Luke when he was capturing the life of Jesus, that nothing is covered up that will not be revealed or hidden that will not be known. Luke chapter 12 and verse 2. Having said that, I really don't have any conflicts of interest that I must declare to you. And I do appreciate the writings of the doctor. Imagine that a medical doctor is in the oracle that I refer to in my spiritual walk. It's a wonderful thing to know that, as our previous speaker said, we doctors have to get broader in our scope and be involved holistically rather than unidirectionally. Paul himself was a Hippocratic physician, like the great Galen, and of course, being converted, his writings really focused on Christ's salvific ministry. So by now you will see that my underlying bias as I go through will be a Judeo-Christian perspective. And that's the one I'm taking in presentation concerning promoting healthy lifespan in primary health care. I really believe in abundant living, and I really believe that the world has forces against us that will steal our living and help us to make aging become more of a disease than a part of a process that is respectable and so noble. Something that was so important in God's giving of the Ten Commandments, that right in the middle, he said, honor your father and your mother. And it's a great commandment. It has promise in there. You will have long life. One of our favorite apostles, I'm sure, of so many of you, is John. And this one is easy. You can remember it. John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal and kill and to destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. That's the English Standard Version that has the wording in that way. The New International Version of Proverbs 3:1-3 says, my son, do not forget my teachings. Keep my commandments in your heart or mind. They will prolong your life many years, and peace and prosperity will attend that. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your necks. This is all metaphorical language. Write them on the tables of your heart, in this case, meaning your brain. And it is really from that perspective that I'm presenting my talk this evening, one that is leading us to abundant living. So I was born in 1952. It was a beautiful day. I was born at 4 o'clock in the morning at St. Joseph's Hospital. I'm sure that when the doctors tried to slap me, I stopped them and shook their hands to, from then, prevent child abuse. And at the time, now that I look back at the statistics, I learned that the life expectancy in Jamaica at that time was 58 years and, a 3/4, 58 years and 9 months roughly. And as you can see from this chart, going through to 1960, where we were still not an independent country yet, it gradually increased. The changes were afoot and things were happening. Let me jump to 2016. and start with 2008 now at the bottom. This chart is flipped from the one that had there. We started 2008, just after we moved into the new millennium, into a life expectancy of 71 and a half years old. And by 2016, which is when I finished serving in the Turks and Caicos Islands, when I came back to Jamaica, the life expectancy was 72 years. That is, of course, if nothing else happens to individuals than the normal course of events. And let's get to today. From then on, it went from 72 years and to today now, we're boasting something in the region of 75.12 years. I want to just have a little caution here. These are, especially this one, these are intercensal estimates, so they're approximations. As a statistician myself, I appreciate the modeling process, and I'm sure you will see that as records come in later on, even some of these figures might be altered as we get the actual things that happened. But it's wonderful to use modeling to help us to see what's going on. Not bad. We're right up there with many of our very developed neighbors. And this is admirable because it means that we are modernizing and adapting to the extent that we are actually able to have a survival curve that looks very close to that of the more developed countries. In fact, indistinguishable in some cases, especially some rich cases that should actually be much better off. Their survival curve is not that much different from ours. Just a little epidemiology class. Let us say we started off with 100% of people, say 1,000 or 10,000, whatever number of people, 1,000,000 people, 100% of them, and we follow them through life on the x-axis there. You would see that from birth, people do die, but it's gradual. But it really starts to speed up in the midlife, about 45, 50. It looks like the human body reboots itself at about 50 or so. And it's not just with menopause, but it's also in men too, in different manifestations. And what you find is that there is an acceleration and a sliding down. And this is in a country that is kind to its citizens. If we were to use some of the countries that are more primitive still, it would be more like from that 100% mark, it would be more like a straight line or a bow, a concave bow down to very few people living to, say, 100 years old, very, very few. In our case, what we are experiencing is that a lot of folks still remain alive up into 70 years old. If you extend that bar, that 70-year bar vertically, and then extend it horizontally, you see it's tending to move into the 60% of the people still surviving. Only 40% we have lost. And by 80, it is down to, say, 35%. By 90, it is down to, say, maybe 15%. And
Hey, Doc. Yeah, you're back with us. You just need to unmute. Should see a pop-up on Zoom. So you have to close the
Good.
well,
Yes, yes,
there
yes.
you go.
Okay,
And
good.
just share screen again.
All righty. So how much did I lose? Where did you lose?
I think you didn't even lose a slide, I don't think, based on
Okay,
where you were.
wonderful. Okay, great.
Yeah, so we should be able to
So you
continue. We
see,
just need you to share the screen again.
thank
Because
you.
it
So
kicked you out, we have to share
oh,
one more time.
you have to share it again. Okay.
Please. Yes,
Um,
thank you.
not a problem, not a problem. So all righty, there we go.
Yeah, that looks like where we were. So let's press the play button again
And we
at the
are
top,
in
and it should
business.
give
We're in
us.
business
Ah, there
again.
we go. Perfect.
Wonderful, wonderful. That little green you are sharing screen gets in the way of my slide. Is there any way you could pull it
It should
aside?
go away now.
It should go away eventually.
It's
Okay.
just showing you what we're seeing, and then
All
it
right.
should take its time and disappear.
Wonderful. All righty. Technology. Um, it was so much simpler in 1952. Uh, but as you can see from the idea of like the Stone Age thing is that nobody was around to 40 years old, 45 years old. Everybody had to did their thing, reproduced, and moved on, the next generation. And there were no chronic non-communicable diseases. As we progressed over the millennia, what we see is we have a rising of that curve. And really, where we are now is now where we can say, when you have a curve that has a sharp horizontal line for most of its life, and then a sharp elbowing down, that's what reflects a country that is really experiencing a more developed lifestyle, a more modern lifestyle, and the benefits of longevity along with good quality of life. We are there. We are better than Sweden was in the 1940s. We are there now, moving more closely to what Japan is in 1977. When we age, there are many changes that happen to us. We see fine lines and wrinkles, crow feet, age spots and hyperpigmentation, dull, sallow, uneven complexion, dry, rough skin textures, loss of skin firmness and elasticity. I'm just amazed at how it's happening as elastin in our skins wear away through a process that's called apoptosis and so forth. Visible pores, droopy eyelids. I can notice it on myself. Laugh lines and frown lines, forehead wrinkles, creepy skin on the body, and chest lines, decollete wrinkles. Those are all things that help us to wake up in the morning and realize that things are changing. There are many ways in which the body goes through changes from in utero right through. If you were a prokaryotic cell, you don't have a nucleus. The DNA is actually just one big circle of a huge molecule, and it's just carried along by molecules in the cytoplasm. Or if you are a eukaryotic cell that is unicellular, you actually have no real aging. What you have is maturing, and then the cells divide, and they never stop dividing. You can see that in fungi, you can see that in bacteria, etc. So in a sense, they're quite immortal, but they are very simplistic and their functions don't match those elegant functions that our cells have. Their functions actually make them now be inhibited from having a variety of wonderful things that we can do. movement, conductivity, molecular absorption, excretion, respiration, reproduction, communication. It's more and more something that is done proficiently as you decide to be a eukaryotic cell that now decides to work as a colony and then works to be more and more of a sophisticated organism. There, in order to keep the organism in a state that is manageable and a form that will course through the environment efficiently, etc., and do those wonderful cellular functions in more organized ways. There, what you have is a variety of processes that actually regulate our cells so that a lot of things can happen. One of them, I won't go into all of them, but one of them that is amazing from birth, in utero actually, is apoptosis. Some people say apoptosis, but PTOSIS is ptosis, so forgive me if I say apoptosis. But I think both terms are acceptable. And it happens and it brings along death of cells in a very programmed way that in the end does not cause release of cellular molecules, etc., that lead to death of tissues, soreness, inflammation of tissues around, tissue deteriorating, and age-related disease. It's a really wonderful process. And for example, that cluster that becomes your hand in utero, and then certain cells in concert, thousands upon thousands of them just decide to die in an organized way and form the spaces between our fingers, etc., and the various clefts and so on that you remember from embryology. It's a really wonderful process. And it's a process that continues throughout life, clearing away damaged cells to maintain good tissue health. And aging tissue, however, unfortunately, develops some kind of a resistance to dying. It's not just a stubborn old man, it's a stubborn eukaryotic old cell. And really, what we have there, the price we pay is accumulation of survival dysfunction. Senescent cells. Senescence is just another word for old cells. And these do exactly what I talked about there, and sets the platform for, if you live long enough, the chronic non-communicable diseases. A whole science surrounds this business of aging, longevity science. And there we have here 12 indicators grouped into 3 categories of the different things that happen to cells as they age. The genome becomes unstable, having fought through, its assault with radiation and other epigenetic things around. The telomeres, like the little plastic tips at the end of your shoelace, they wear out and the DNA gets less organized, etc. And that really is what helps the cells to keep the genome to keep multiplying in an organized way, along with genes, gene features such as P53 and so forth. And then, of course, not only the genes, but also that environment around the genes, the molecular environment around the genes starts to get altered. Methylations happen and so forth. And that's the primary set of hallmarks. Antagonistic hallmarks are loss of proteostasis, deregulated nutrient sensing. You notice that the older you are, the less your GI tract absorbs the food you eat. It's a less efficient process. Mitochondrial dysfunction, cellular senescence, with these cells just hanging around like zombie cells. And the third major grouping is the integrative hallmarks, the downstream culprits of decline, where you have stem cell exhaustion, altered intercellular communication, which leads to negative repair, not as good at repairing that they, as they should, to maintain an organ's integrity and the tissues that make up that organ's integrity. Disabled macroautophagy, that, you know, the body has a way to eat away things that are needing to disappear once they are no more of use in the body, autophagy. And it's disabled with all that happened in the other two the other two groupings ahead of it. Chronic inflammation, as I mentioned, and what you get, actually the term in, these days sometimes is inflammaging. You get just a loss of a variety of things that chronic inflammation will now induce. You get increased atherosclerosis and so on and so forth. But then in the gut, you also get dysbiosis, the gut microbiome, which takes us through life from in utero. And we have a good harmony with it as it interacts and informs our immune system. It gets dysfunction. There's imbalance, there are alterations that happen because of some of the other inefficiencies that are happening. And the immune function, therefore, is compromised, and other things as well are compromised. In a pictorial fashion form, this is what you will see it looking like. And I encourage you to just go on your cell phone and just look for it. A man said to the universe, "Sir, I exist." "However," replied the universe, "the fact has not created in me a sense of obligation." Do you agree? This is a famous poem, a line, a part from a famous poem. If you disagree, why? If you agree, why? Did you choose to be here? You now having been here, is your hope that somebody has an obligation, or some forces have an obligation to honor the wonderfulness that you are? Or is it like so many cosmologists are telling us now that it's all pointless? Millions and millions and billions of years from now, it will all come to a cold stillness. These things raise issues for us that sets the tone. And are we simply at the mercy of mindless forces that have no interest or concern about us or our well-being? If yes, what kind of world would that be, and what future would there likely be? I hope the answer is no. In contrast, were we created and sustained by the transcendental creator who cares for us, should we have reason to be able to deal with fears and trials that beset all humanity, including the fear of morbidity, sickness, illness, disease, and mortality, the nice word for death? Oh, I tell you, David said this, "The Lord is my helper on my side. I will not fear, be afraid." What can man, mere mortals, that is, do to me? That's the attitude of some folks who have taken a more transcendental way, approach to this matter. The history of anti-aging medicine is well worth perusing quickly. And it starts with early antiquity and early alchemy, and you know it. You have seen it right through to ancient rituals, even the Greeks with the humoral theories, you know, of black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, etc. To the extent where the brain in the days of the Romans, the brain was thought to be, and even the Egyptians, you never find an Egyptian urn for the organ that's the brain. The body would be desiccated, and trephine would be placed to break up the cribriform plate, and then it would just be moved around, swirl around, and then shaken out, the brain contents, because what it was considered up until a long time afterwards was finally one of the Hippocratic physicians who said that the brain really is for thinking. But before that, it was thought to be an organ to produce mucus. And who could blame them? When you're sick and you're copiously having that rhinorrhea, it must have come from some big thing up there, especially if you don't have histology at the time to tell you about the goblet cells, etc., in your turbinates and so forth. But you know, history is a wonderful thing. They do things differently back there. We move on to the 19th century and early 20th century, when they were thinking of using glands, grafting animal testicles and injecting extracts to try to move things forward with a better understanding of the parts of the body. By then, we had known Harvey had figured out for us what the circulatory system did, and that it was not just an ebb and flow like when you go to the beach, the waves going back and forth. That's how they thought the blood was. It was a wave-like process. And who could blame them? When you cut, blood just pours out, just like a water coming over a bank of a river. It's only when you cut an artery that you see it spurting. And they said that that was pneuma, essence from around that went, and it was pneuma that was pumping in the arteries, and the heart was made to pump pneuma, and so on. And that spurting was the heart squirting pneuma. And it was a different time. Harvey changed all of that, thanks to him. And the birth of a lot of more informed physiology and anatomy came. And with it, efforts at understanding, and also some of things like surgical procedures. Now that surgery was becoming more favorable in medicine, because after all, our first degree was just the MB, or the B, the medical bachelor, yes. And the word bachelor really means knight. You are a knight of medicine. No women were there, but eventually the ladies learned how to slip into medical school, and now they've taken over. And it was a time when surgery also came in, and so we have wrinkle excisions, and even right now that leads to the foundation for modern medical aesthetics. And the shift to cellular biology happened in the time after my birth and so forth, the 1980s. And we learned about the Hayflick limit, telling us that cells only have a fixed number of divisions. For us, it's about 60 of them. And that for certain animals, it's just a few. And then they stop dividing. Oxidative stress, then Harman told us about that. And free radicals causing cellular damage. And now the mainstream boom happened in the 1990s as far as aging medicine's history is concerned, right through to now, where we have human growth hormone, recombinant human growth hormone, and hormone clinics, life extension movements, etc., aesthetic, Botox, laser, cosmetic stuff, cellular programming by studying and exploiting pathways that regulate cellular decline with mTOR and sirtuins, translational intervention therapies, senolytics, that are supposed to clear out senescent cells, etc., right through to drugs like rapamycin and metformin, even being used in off-label interventions, so that we can go after keeping young, personalization of various omics that we have, profiling and epigenetic clocks. You can go online now and really quite impressively have your life expectancy be figured out in really good research-based ways, based upon all kinds of things. And we can now distinguish between biological age versus your chronological age. Longevity medicine's history reflects a transition to highly personalized, proactive care. You heard that term in our previous presenter, excellent presentation, because so many things now are seeing the wisdom of personalized care. It was something that Hippocrates actually saw too. If two people had diarrhea, for example, Hippocrates would treat them according to where they came from, their environment, what jobs they did, etc. And so it would not be a standardized care that we are so familiar with today with the rigid guidelines that we are told to handle maturely. And really, what we have with all of that is a modern precision medicine model that we are looking at now favorably. Advanced diagnostics really have taught us that why do your blood sugar once in a while? Why not do continuous monitoring? Why not do genetic testing to identify preclinical indicators of disease? And now we have AI on which we can do some cognitive offloading to, things that are too tedious and we would take too long to do. And let it complement and better empower physicians to bring change through relationships now, because we can free up our physicians to spend more time with patients if they are ones who are masters of AI in a healthy kind of way. Preventative protocols really came through in the history as ways of deploying targeted nutritional plans, exercise physiology and pharmacology interventions to maintain peak physical and cognitive functions, and other wonderful things that I'm sure will happen in the future, to what now we call longevity medicine. And I need to just say something about longevity medicine. It really has two components, cellular science and modern diagnostics, that with an underlying purpose being delaying age-related diseases by transforming reactive components of primary health care. You heard our previous speaker talk about reactionary medicine, moving from a reactionary kind of sick care to becoming more increasingly so highly personalized strategy for vital long-term well-being through proactive approaches. And it involves a shift towards highly personalized, data-driven prevention. Longevity medicine is really not as well accepted as is, let us say, integrative medicine. There is no college for it in the, say, for example, in the United States, not yet anyway. It is at that stage. But as I showed you, its history has been a long time coming. And I have a feeling that those formalizations will happen, and you will have it as yet another specialty that you can choose to go into. It has 4 pillars, foundational pillars: eat, move, sleep, and connect. Regardless of advanced therapies, the foundation of health span remains lifestyle. That is what you see from the choice of those 4. It is not robotic surgery, etc. It is just those simple things. Let's attack eating, moving, sleep, and connections in how we better involve ourselves in society. Because, they are being shown to really catch physiological decline early and reduce long-term burden of non-communicable diseases. Follow this longevity medicine trend, if you may. Let's see if it really lasts. I'm predicting that it will. Eat. The first pillar, personalized nutrition, prioritizing metabolic health, including water, sustained hydration. Mr. Russell will be happy to hear that his Pedialyte is wonderful in that regard. And we're not just talking now about, eating for just satiety, quenching your thirst and your abating your hunger, but because you want to affect your metabolic processes. So you're getting folks focusing on a ketogenic diet at some point, etc. Folks showing that with future research that is not a diet that you should live on for a long time, because it has its side effects when you carry it on for too long. But it's a very results-driven way to get results that help you to move into a BMI, a body mass index, that makes a difference, that is more healthy, etc. And there are other wonderful techniques that go there. But really, what it is saying here is eat smaller portions, eat more vegetables, etc. Make sure your protein is adequate. Make sure that you are having proper supplementations, etc. That there is evidence for. And of course, the choice is yours as a patient if you want to use other things, but the physician cannot offer any scientific evidence until there is proper investigation of these things. But many times we have learned from our patients and what they eat. Some denominations have led the way long before they are now recognized as some of the longest living groups of people. And they were ridiculed for having less meat and more plant-based foods. And now, and I'm speaking of denominations like the Rastafarians and the Seventh-day Adventists, but now blue zones are around, and they're not just confined to nations. There are blue zones based upon groups of people who hold certain beliefs about eating that are just healthy. Another thing about the eat emphasis as you bring longevity medicine, as longevity medicine seems to improve primary health care, is blood sugar stability. And that comes from our wonderful work that we have seen with the internal medicine researchers and lipidologists and diabetologists, etc. We've reached a stage now where the way to monitor that is to eat, is not just to monitor it with a machine. A machine does not bring down your blood sugar. It is the proper eating that brings it down. The machine just informs you as to how successful you are. Very, very important to understand that. Move. Maintain muscle mass and bone density. Consistent resistance training right through life. And it will help us to have calcium be retained in the blood, protein be retained in the bones, sorry, not the blood, in the bones, protein be retained. The integrity of the bone will be such that osteoporosis and related fractures will be less. But also your muscles and sarcopenia and so forth will be avoided, and falls will be avoided, and so on and so forth. And the way to do that is not through, say, trying to be Mr. Universe and the gym, but to be consistent with aerobic training and tailor it to your age. These days on your cell phone devices, I'm sure you're plagued with offers to come and get involved in this and that training program that is based upon that and that are tailored to different age groups. Sleep, and should I just add rest? Quality rest to support cellular repair. The science is really strong that that is something that should be upheld and be faithful for. It's one of the most dangerous things you could do as a human being is to go to sleep. Yet still, every human being, snakes, birds, some birds sleep while they are in flight. They sleep as they're flying over the ocean. They sleep for a portion of the flight and just automatically flap their wings, etc. It's inescapable. And it helps them to, in ways that are just more and more proving to be amazing. as research is applied to really better appreciating what is going on there in these wonderful phenomena in nature. Our cognitive processes, well, do I need to tell you that? Without sleep, we ourselves become zombies, don't we? But we're so much clearer, and we advise our students not to study the night before the exam. I don't know how many follow it, but we know that the studies show that those who perform the best are the ones who have studied way in advance and use that night to go into the exam well rested. And the same goes for turning up to work as you are taking care of our patients. As we do that, the discipline of sleep and the passing on of that discipline to the patients is something that we all agree with. Connectivity is so important. Social connectivity. We're social beings as much as we are physical and mental beings. And in the whole thing, the adhesive holding it together is a spiritual principles that we choose to embrace. And our connectivity also improves not only our social survival as a very sophisticated groups, but on a personal level, our own emotional well-being. It seems like nothing quite makes you feel like you belong than when you actually go about connecting. And then as you meet as a group, we reaffirm each other. We should encourage that among our patients as well, because those with greater abilities to do that are the very ones that have better emotional well-being. Long before all of this, there was a program that I admired called the New Start program. And the Seventh-day Adventist Church really pushed it. I decided to improve it and call it the I Start Anew program. And maybe there are others who did it, so I won't even get credit for it, but I don't know of anybody else who did it. But what I found out when I did that, and here are the components, 10 of them, is that with the longevity medicine's foundational pillars, they have already covered 50% of that. And then the rest, once the patients master this, you can then show them the beauty of sunlight in its your right interactions with it, self-control or temperance, smoking and alcohol and so forth were addressed by our last speaker. The air, our atmosphere, our ambience, we should really be really healthy. Trust should be developed on the human level with other parts of nature and also the creator of nature. Our attitude should be one that an agape kind of approach, a love that is selfless, should drive our attitudes. And those would just complement the integrity in involvement, the rest, including sleep, nutrition, exercise, that is good activity, along with water as well, that keeps us well in holistic ways when used internally and externally. Jamaica's life expectancy at birth as of this year is looking good. Flashing back to 1950, you can see we have come a long way, baby. We've come a far way, baby. You know what that little dip is there in the 2020s, early 2019, 2020s. That was the COVID dip. But once we had enough herd immunity and technology, vaccinations, etc., we bounced right back along the same basic trajectory. Our ladies are doing particularly well. The life expectancy of 74 years, and our men are struggling to make it to 70 years. So men and us who deal with men, there is a challenge for us. The data is speaking to us. But it's wonderful. It tells us that we are a country that is prime to pay attention to gero medicine or life longevity medicine, and inform that with lifestyle medicine and all of the other areas that our previous speaker asked us to have a more collaborative approach with, and have a philosophy that is really more so one of health promotion, where we're moving towards a proactive care rather than reactive care primarily. There are times, however, for reactive care. When that person comes in with a laceration or a gunshot wound in the emergency, that's not time for health education. That's time for reactive care. And so everything has a time and a season, Solomon would advise us. Preventative care, I join in with the previous speaker in underscoring that. Does that mean that we give up on curative care? God forbid. It's so good. It's a form of prevention, actually. It's a secondary form of prevention. And even also moving beyond that to care of the dying. And that would be more what we call tertiary, moving to quaternary care. Tertiary care being more trying to prevent disabilities and dysfunctions through a long sort of process of monitoring that actually longevity medicine has a feature in as well. We're asked to move towards things that are more cost effective, and sometimes some things will be cost intensive, but really our emphasis should be on cost effectiveness. And the core concept that drives us philosophically towards this business of longevity medicine or gero medicine is the concept of health span. So far, I've showed you lifespan, the years of life lived, regardless of the quality of life. But here comes this new concept, health span, which is the years lived in good health. What that is helping us to do is look at disease and death over our collective lifespan. That's the more lifespan approach. To the health span approach would be more wellness over that set of collective life years. And extending currently to a very interesting concept that I learned of recently called the joy span. It's a new science paving the way towards happy aging. Kerry Burnright is Dr. Burnright, a gerontologist, not a medical doctor, came up with that. And really, the duration and depth of well-being, meaning, and fulfillment of a person's experience throughout life would really define it well. And, it is really the emotional counterpart of lifespan. And it really is a shift in focus from merely adding years to your life to adding joy and value to your years. The emphasis really is on long-term joy as being sustainable, even amidst the challenges of aging. And the rationale for that is that sustainability of efforts to add joy and value is stemming from deep fulfillment rather than fleeting happiness. I won't say any more about that because that may require its own presentation. But I will agree with Solomon that a cheerful heart or heartfelt mind is good medicine. But a crushed, depressed spirit dries up the bones, or the holistic framework. Proverbs 17:22 reminds us of that. So back to longevity medicine and how it can better primary health care. Because the goals that it upholds is acting on present consensus to integrate rationally into standard primary health care, progressively emerging evidence-based longevity science interventions intended to, and here's the part, remember that the survival curve that I showed you, to compress the person's periods of illness and disability into the smallest possible window at the end of their lives, so that those curves bulge out to the right and sharply drop. You live and live and live, and then most people just achieve that successfully. A few might die on the way for reasons that we have no mastery over at the moment, but it's a more rapid death and a longer lifespan, and indeed health span. And geroscience is really what the term I've been using is geromedicine, but geroscience is really the biological process being looked at as the root of most chronic pathoses, cardiovascular diseases, cells getting old, chronic kidney diseases, etc. And there's a longevity pyramid to it, where at the base of the pyramid is lifestyle changes. Then testing comes as the next layer, and medications and supplements as the next layer. And you get the pyramid bearing narrowing out to the point where advanced techniques being the final peak of that pyramid. That also you can see beautiful pictures of when you go and use your phones, etc. And here we are looking at beginning with standard clinical prevention. You adopt a structured approach to clinical care that advances through lifestyle interventions. And concurrently, we are going to be using advanced biomarker analysis for continuous health optimization. And so what we're going to be doing is using our routine blood, sputum, etc. tests, but to that, adding more advanced metabolic panels. Genetic and epigenetic data is now more and more available. And let me just see if I could wow you with some of the epigenetic tests that we can do. Detecting of DNA methylation in populations of molecules, methyl-sensitive restrictive enzymes. That's one thing. Detecting DNA methylation in single molecules, bisulfite conversion. Detecting DNA hydroxymethylation, fluorescence resonance energy transfer. Identifying histone modification states, chromatin immunoprecipitation. Detection of DNA accessibility states, ASEs, hypersensitivity testing. Detecting of DNA accessibility status in single molecules, assay of transposase accessible chromatin. Detecting overall chromatin states on individual chromatin fibers and fiber sequences. And enjoying what some countries have, publicly available resources that enable exploration of epigenetic states at genomic scales. Many things have really just opened the door for us to bring in the genetic and epigenetic data in ways that complement our standard tests. And of course, I mentioned earlier, making use of biological aging clocks by filling out the surveys and the computer programs that calculate a difference between your biological age versus your chronological age. The emphasis here, which actually was mentioned in the previous presentation, is ongoing dynamic monitoring and ongoing dynamic changes in the care of the patient based upon their life course. It's a continuous, dynamic, continuous process. So what I want you to note is that primary healthcare workers must interdependently collaborate with the wider team for comprehensive longevity medical care to be realistic. It's not going to work if it only lands on primary healthcare. You have to have maybe the specialty being more mature eventually, and so you can reach when you reach a point, as was pointed out in the algorithms that were shown in the last presentation. Much of it you keep back in primary care, but there are stages where you have to hand it over now to those who just do that as their specialty, as they serve the public. So maybe that day will come, and indeed, in the meantime, we refer to the existing specialists who we hope are also warming up to this concept. It also aims to preserve physiological resilience so patients can remain active and independent well into their later years. I'm blessed with being from a family that is a set of long livers. We have had our few children died here and there too, like so many other families. But in general, my families have done well on both sides, my mother's and my father's side. And one of the things that I noticed is that, especially with my mother, is the very, very careful way with which she did things to preserve her physiological status. And the amazing thing I found was that as she got older, she got stricter with those things. Well, she made it to 98 and a half years last month. Month before last. And we celebrated her life then with a lot of joy at what she had accomplished. As this field grows rapidly, experts advise caution regarding unproven therapies and encourage sticking to evidence-based practices supervised by qualified primary healthcare providers. And there are a variety of sources that you can go. I mentioned just two here to bolster that recommendation and adopt it into your lives and apply it to our patients and guide our patients, because our patients themselves have access to care through access to care information through the wonderful technology that we have. We think it's a phone, but it's actually a massive computer that can be held in our hands because it's linked to powerful databases and transformers these days with artificial intelligence and so forth. And really, what we are being asked to do is stay abreast so that we can guide our patients even on how to be a little critical in how they imbibe all of that information that is there. Well, I love this hymn. I have a sin of fear that when I have spun my last thread, I shall perish on the shore. But swear by thyself that at my death thy sun shall shine as he shines now and henceforth. And having done that, thou hast done. I shall fear no more. Philippians 4:19 tells us, and my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. I thank you. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of himself, Holy Spirit. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. And I thank you, and I wish you a wonderful night.
Dr. Frankson, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a wonderful presentation. I see in the chat already. Interesting new information. I'm going to welcome Dr. Murray to turn his camera on and rejoin us as we go into our question and answer section. So the first question I have, are DNA methylation tests and other similar tests available in Jamaica?
Is my camera up? Sorry, is
Yeah,
my
man.
mic?
I can see you, Dr.
Sorry.
Man. Yeah, man.
Okay, so can you repeat the question?
So are DNA methylation tests and other similar tests available in Jamaica? Are you guys aware? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So, well, my answer to that is I'm not entirely sure. I can do some checks here with the lab and get back to you with that information. I can definitely do that and make it available if anything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. May I join in to say that
Sure.
I too am not sure about in Jamaica, but our patients travel and they seek advice and referrals, and they seek specialist advice, etc. And they somehow, through that interconnecting network, are able to cover the costs. Some of them, anyway, and unfortunately, many can't. But what I'm hoping, Dr. Murray, is that our biochemistry labs and those folks who took us through so many headaches, learning protein synthesis, etc., those biochemists, etc. I'm hoping they have their own sets of it on their shelves and are, at least we can use it for research. I'm hoping that that is our situation. But such is the nature of the inequalities socioeconomically. And the richer countries are providing their clients with things that we will one day do.
Right. Thank you so much. So for Dr. Murray, many patients feel well and therefore avoid screening. What strategies have you found most effective in encouraging asymptomatic patients to participate in preventative care?
All right, so I think someone had mentioned in the chat as well how important it is for a collaborative effort in terms of the communities, the churches, right? It cannot just be from the doctor, because I can tell you from my own personal medical experience, my wonderful wife is a great motivator for me even to seek out medical care when it is that I need it. So you can imagine that 18-year-old man who feels like he's on top of the world. It has to come from family support. It has to come from community. And I think how we reach out is by connecting these things. The collaborative effort through the church and community are important. A lot of where you grab these young people, I would say, or the younger adult sort of age range has to come from that. They're not gonna come to us first, but you definitely, when you have them, you hold on to them once you get them. So I think that's where it starts. It's more community effort.
Thank you so much. And for Dr. Frankson, at what age should discussions about healthy aging and longevity begin in primary care?
It should be a life course.
Right.
Thing. It should be a life course plan. And, I always put a little smile on my patients to say, when you were born, you were 1 year old or 1 day old. And so really, the things that we lay the foundation for at those ages are the things that more and more research is showing that we pay the price for them if they were foolish things, and we reap the rewards for them if they were good things. Take for example, keeping your bone mineral, your calcium in your bone. After you're reached about 25, 30, you really can't change your calcium very much. It is set, and it is the body's just there using the various clasts and sites, etc. And the parathyroids interplay and so forth to just maintain that calcium. But you can add to that being a good athlete.
Yes.
Even if you come last in the race, run. Even
Yes.
if you are looking the clumsiest one in the gym, go or get your own little gym, etc. But keep active and be temperate with it. Start out gently and then move gradually over weeks to get to where your goals can be, and make your goals realistic, because those things not only improve you physically, they also improve your behavior. And they improve things like compliance and so forth. And they also improve your sense of well-being, which goes to be a positive feedback to help that whole thing to be more likely to be sustained. And then there's other wonderful concepts like the concept of grace and forgiveness and all of those things which you should practice from you were a little child right through.
Thank you so much. So I have a final question for both of you. I'm going to ask you to give me a rapid fire answer. And the question is, how can primary care physicians shift from a disease treatment model to a prevention and health promotion model?
Alrighty. My quick answer to that is through using the involvement approach.
Great.
Because that's the neglected arm in primary health care. Primary health care is actually health promotion education, health protection, medical care, and community involvement. and we do everything except we do everything except that we do the health protection part badly. Instead of we ourselves being up to date on the health protection, which is the environmental health part, we outsource that to the environmental health specialists and hope they do a good job. But the one that is really badly treated is community is involvement. We started out trying to have community health committees, etc. In some cases, and it really wasn't given the kind of resourcing and attention that it should be. So our communities still just look at us as if to say, anything you say, doctor, or anything you say, nurse, rather codependently, instead of taking control as well. And when they do take control, they take control in very awkward ways, where they do it divorced from us instead of in consultation with us. And then the other thing that gives me hope is civil society has movements. Like, for example, the Healthy Caribbean movement that is going on there, coming out of Barbados, from Professor Hassel and so forth. Those are some of the best things. The problem is you're not seeing enough of these things, because those are the things that get you, once you can sit down and organize and meet as committees, the doctor can be a part of the committee, and the doctor can be on top, but not necessarily on top. And the doctor, with other people around there, together a plan, and you raise the agenda, and you actually now steer the committees that plan the programs into a prevention-oriented agenda, knowing that there is primordial prevention, primary prevention, secondary prevention, tertiary prevention, and even quaternary prevention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frankson and Dr. Murray.
Right. I think it's a number of things. Well, first of all, for us as physicians, I think we definitely have to stop seeing ourselves as prescription writers and more as educators for our patients. Education is such a powerful tool that we have been given in terms of our health, right? To ensure that the person that is in front of us truly understands what the timeline is like, if they are, truly following along with their health, with the things that they need to be doing, right? It's not as simple as this is your prescription, you take your medications and you'll be fine. I think we really have to, sorry, I've noticed that this has frozen. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, Doc, I'm hearing you.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. So we really, it's a shift that has to happen at multiple levels, from legislative come all the way down. I mean, it is important for us to all together collaboratively take a patient-centered approach, because once we're able to educate, it empowers the patient. An empowered patient is a patient I would more trust to take care of their health than otherwise.
Thank you so much. Dr. Murray, Dr. Frankson, really appreciate you very much. And of course, want to appreciate our attendees as well for joining. What wonderful presentations. But to do the official vote of thanks, I'm now going to invite Dr. Dane Levy to bring a vote of thanks for today's event. Dr. Levy, are you with us?
Good evening, everyone. Let me first of all apologize for the lighting on my phone in the background. I hope you're able to see me and hear me clearly.
We are, Doc.
Wonderful. We are at the end of a rather interesting webinar, two wonderful presentations, and I would like to take this opportunity to say thanks. Just appreciate the opportunity to say thanks on behalf of the Caribbean College of Family Physicians, of which I am the honorary secretary, the Jamaican chapter, of course. Many of us on the executive have been instrumental in making this evening's webinar a success. First, let me just thank Dr. Arlene Henry Dawkins I think she began with prayer. She invoked the presence of the Lord and asked his blessings upon us. And our chapter president, Dr. Seni Ananuju, who brought us greetings and gave us an overview of the webinar that we learned so much from. Our first presenter was Dr. Shane Murray, of course, our junior internist, and his presentation very, very interesting and informative. And the angle that he's taking in terms of education is something that we all ought to adopt, to inform and to educate and allow our patients to be able to make wise choices for their health. So he presented on prevention and early detection of NCDs in primary care. Our lone sponsor was Abbott Pharmaceuticals, and Paul made his presentation. We thank you, Paul, most wholeheartedly, because you are part of the support system that we depend so heavily on to put on these webinars. And of course, the nutritional products that you highlighted, we all use in our practices, and we all encourage our patients to use them as well. Dr. Frankson, a consultant epidemiologist and bioethicist, spoke on the longevity medicine and healthy aging, and promoting health span. And I think he gave us a well-rounded presentation, and we're always appreciative of his sharing his wisdom, his knowledge, and his understanding with us. And we're all the better for it. I think we have benefited tremendously from these two presentations this evening. And if we should begin to look at how we practice medicine with these ideas and this information in mind, I think the offerings that we give to our patients would definitely improve. Of course, I must extend thanks to our participants who joined with us this evening, and I'm sure they are thankful for the fact that they were able to join, and I'm sure they would have learned something from the webinar this evening. Our able administrator, Mrs. Lynn Thompson Hyatt, and her staff are also instrumental in making this webinar a success. And of course, our able technical team, headed by none other than Sam Heron of Oldgate Solutions. They did exceptionally well in just rounding off everything and making sure that things ran rather smoothly, and we were able to get additional information as Sam showed up the question and answer section of the program. I think we all benefited very well, very much. One person that I would probably have not yet thanked, it would be Dr. Kian Bukal. I think she had some part to play in the organizing of the program this evening, and I want to thank her most wholeheartedly as well. So overall, we have spent an excellent couple of hours this evening learning and sharing, and I think that it is rebounded to the benefit of us all. So once again, on behalf of the executive and president of the Jamaican chapter of the Caribbean College of Family Physicians, I say thank you, good night, God bless you, and let us all continue to serve our people and serve them well. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you so much, Dr. Levy. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's event. We thank you so much. A quick reminder that we will be having part 2 of this wonderful series on Sunday. And also that you will receive an email with the payment information and how to access your certificates from the Secretariat at the CCFPJ. Everyone, please stay safe. Have a wonderful evening. And I hope to speak to you all and see you all on Sunday. Have a wonderful day. Later.
Thank you.